Kiwi time now is 9:33.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
And joining me now in the Kiwi studio, bear with me on this one, Google innovationist Justin Baird. I've never heard of an innovationist before, so I'm absolutely stoked to have him in today. Justin, hello to you and welcome along to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me today.
Now, you are based in San Fran?
In Sydney.
In Sydney?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
A Google innovationist, what is that?
It is an interesting title. So it is actually a word in the dictionary.
Yeah.
So it means one who favors innovation. Quite simply. Yeah.
I did type it into my Twitter client and it said no. No, I've never seen that word. We've never seen that word before.
Right, indeed. Well, basically, I mean, that kind of role is just focused on all of these new technologies that are coming out all the time.
Right.
Google's involved in so many different areas of technology and the development of these things. So I work very closely with people within both Australia and New Zealand, focusing on bringing these new technologies to the market and having people do fun and interesting things with it.
Do you work on the development side of things as well, or you're more at the coalface with the public and businesses?
Yeah, a bit more on the coalface with the public and businesses. But at the same time, I'm a member of Programmers Anonymous. I programmed in a previous life, so
yeah.
I sort of know both sides of the fence and help coordinate that.
Well, that's the thing. If I know anything about Google hiring practices, you have to have had done a fair few things before you got inside the company.
Right. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
So I'm actually in my previous life, I used to work in the entertainment industry. So if you went and saw like a big concert, if you saw like U2 in some stadium somewhere, there's you're listening to them through some of the products that I helped develop.
Wow. But examples? You got any examples of products?
I used to work at Dolby, the surround sound company,
yep.
And we had a whole series of live sound products. And so these are all the signal processors that make these huge concert systems work.
Wow.
So a bit of it was both, I guess, the creative kind of music side of things, which I also sort of went to school that way. So I have an engineering degree as well as was in the music school at the same time. So
right.
Sort of creativity and technology combined.
Hey, let's look at some of those products that Google have been bringing to the fore and to the public over the past couple of years. One of them being Google Wave. Now there was a lot of fanfare when that came out. I don't know whether Google created it themselves or it was the Google fans that kind of talked it up. But I think a lot of people gave it a go last year, and it's sort of fallen off because we didn't really understand how to use it.
Right. Yes. Well, Google Wave is actually quite a fascinating technology, and what I think is the case is people have seen the kind of user interface, and this is very, very early development days. And there's actually a tremendous platform of technology that's sitting behind this, Wave user interface. And so it really is a kind of interesting way that basically can change the way that the world communicates. So what's interesting about it is when you've got email, that's sort of like you're passing effectively a virtual envelope between people.
Right.
And that means that envelope can be of kind of one revision, or somebody might write a little bit extra on that envelope, and then that gets passed around, and there's sort of many copies of this information redundantly in many people's inboxes, for example.
Yeah,
and
filling them up. That is.
Yes, yeah. And what Wave is, it's very different. The way it works is it's something that we call a hosted conversation. And what that really means is that there's one reference. There's like when you're having a conversation, so to speak, imagine that it's just one envelope that everyone shares, everyone can look at the same time.
Yeah.
So if somebody makes an edit to that or adds some extra text or erases something, everyone's watching the same thing. And it's very interesting as well because with broadband technologies and the speed of the internet, you're literally watching people make changes in real time so you can see people typing in the Wave and many people typing at the same time.
One thing I've heard back from people who have tried using it, even myself, is that there's with that real timeness comes a lot of noise and a lot more complications and so much information happening and happening in real time, not being able to absorb it and control it. How do you get around that?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because, of course, whenever you're sort of innovating and pushing the envelope of new technologies, it's sort of changing the way that people think about communications. So it's very different because it does provide effectively kind of a real-time interface. And so, you could imagine if you were on a telephone line and there was 50 people talking on the telephone line at the same time, it would be hard to understand. So in many respects, it's sort of like there will be points in time where many people are collaborating at the same time. and it supports that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is the type of thing where you could watch what's happening with that, come into the wave and see what's happening, or it's very similar that you can come back and see these things happening as well. There's an interesting feature which is called playback. And what playback allows you to do is if you come into a wave, you can literally hit this button, go backwards in time, and see how the wave kind of developed as well.
Okay.
So that's very interesting as well because you can see the thought processes and the collaboration that have happened.
So what would be an example of a way you could start incorporating wave into what you do now?
There's. I guess that's one of the things with such a interesting platform is that there's so many different ways that people could use it. A very simple thing is, imagine creating an event. So let's say that, even something as simple as just having a party at your place. You could invite all these people and sort of say, hey, we're going to have this thing happening, and then there's these things inside Wave which are called extensions. And an extension is something that just lets you do all different types of functionality inside of the environment. So, for example, there's like a yes, no, maybe extension. It's like one of the simplest ones.
Okay.
But literally, you just sort of say, "Hey, I'm having a party on Saturday night. Who can come?" And you invite everybody, and then they literally go in there and say, "Yes, I can come. No, I can't," or maybe. And then you don't even need to worry about it because then when the party's happening, you just have a quick look at this thing on the day before, and you can see what everyone has sort of said in terms of that, and they can go back and change it over time. And it's just a simple example.
I suppose it's a great example, and I suppose the challenge though for Google is to get people to use a tool like Wave as opposed to what they might be using now, which might be Facebook, it might be Twitter, or it could be something else. And that leads us on to what I want to talk about next is the fact that there is so many options out there. There's so many social media options out there. Going forwards into the future, do you see that it's all going to be narrowed down into one channel rather than being so fractured as it is at the moment?
Well, that's an interesting space as well in this kind of world of social media. My kind of view on this is, we sort of see this proliferation of social networks. We've seen kind of like the broad reach networks, the very large ones. But there's also, as you said, all these kind of niche audience ones that have come out. And it's interesting because there sort of is this trend towards like what I'd call, for lack of a better term, like a micro social network, like, smaller networks. And I don't see that going away. In many respects, I sort of see that continuing to prosper. And there's a different way to solve that, which is imagine that everyone just had, one ID, like one social ID, so that whatever social network you went to, you didn't have to go register over again. You didn't have to enter your details 150 times for all these different sites.
Right.
What happens is effectively your social profile goes with you. So it's interesting because you can do this type of thing in a large group, a large social network by creating a group. Whereas imagine, if you're into, Ducati motorcycles, your social network would be, optimized for HD, high action dynamic content, multimedia. Whereas if it's the local knitting club, the knitting club's not going to be interested in HD video. They're going to be sharing pictures and talking about the latest cross stitch or something. Yeah. So you can see sort of how the proliferation of these things, it's going to follow sort of along the lines of, the way that people have created groups offline.
Do you see that your Google ID, your Google profile, will be the central ID, the hub, as it were?
Well, it can be, but it's not limited to that. So there's something that's called OpenID. And OpenID is this effectively an open identification platform for social networks. A Google account works for that, a Yahoo account. If you had like a MySpace login, there's many different users that are effectively supporting this OpenID. So if you have one login, it can sort of follow around. We have an interesting product that's sort of in early phase. It's fully functional and available for people to use called Google Friend Connect.
Yep.
And Google Friend Connect is an interesting tool because what that does is it brings the power of social networks to your own website. So what it does is it basically allows you to just go to a user interface, say, I'd like to have a sign-in gadget. I'd like to have a comments gadget. There's many different little gadgets you could put on your site.
Right.
And there's no development involved. So you could literally just bring all the power of the social network into your own website.
And so people can interact on that. Let's say if they have a Gmail address, they'll be able to interact on those.
That's right, exactly. So, and it's, again, not just limited to a Google account. It's many different people are now supporting this open ID concept.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like, for example, we created, I helped create something called Earth Connect, which was a social network for Earth Hour.
Yep.
If you remember, in March this past year, where everyone turns their lights off for the hour. In recognition of all those things.
Yeah.
And we created this thing called Earth Connect, where it was based on Friend Connect, and it had a membership gadget, and then there was like this comments area. And what was happening was the night of Earth Hour, people that were online were there just chatting away, and what's interesting is chatting away in many different languages. And so what's also interesting is that there's translation tools built into this.
That's quite powerful.
Yeah. So not only are you bringing people together in the context of a website in a social way for a specific event, you're not only bringing the horse to the water, you're allowing them to drink, I guess, as well, because you can translate these things into any local language. So we support over 50 languages, which is over 98% of the languages that are on the web around the world. Yeah.
Justin, thanks so much for your time and for taking time out of your day to come in and visit us here at Kiwi. Really appreciate your time here on the Radio Wammo show.
Sure. It's been great. Thanks.
Hope to have you back again soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That is Justin Baird, who is a Google innovationist.